They have been asking me for a little while to do my life change story, and I'm finally doing it. I've been coming to church at the center since September, and I've heard a ton of life change stories, and so I guess I'm excited to be able to share mine. I've struggled with the idea of giving one and what I would say, and honestly, the biggest reason is that I don't have this like super dramatic change in lifestyle at any point in my life. Most of you that I've heard give life change stories, they're like these moving, just inspirational stories where you're in the deepest, darkest hole and God shines light into your life and changes you in a huge way. And I listen to these and I'm like, man, I feel like I've never like had that. I've never been in the deepest, darkest hole. I've never been down to the last straw. I've I've just been blessed, honestly. If you guys don't know me that well yet, the more you get to know me, the more you'll see just how lucky I am. I can't, and I mean, ever since I was a kid, I grew up in a great family, in a healthy home, healthy relationships, great role models, with a decent view of the church, and I never had to deal with an early death of a loved one. I've never been through anything that difficult. And so, anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that but I still have been changed drastically by Christ. And I was worried about how I would convey this, coming from a guy who seems to have gotten it all, and everything, all the cards were lined up in my favor, how God could still affect my life in an extremely huge way. So anyway, in my attempt to do that, I'm just going to kind of let God take the reins, and I'm just going to take you through the story of when I accepted Christ into my life. About 8 years ago, I was in high school, and I was a sophomore in high school, and I was just, I wouldn't even say I was really struggling with too much, but I was thinking a lot, and just about life, about what it meant, and I'd been going through confirmation in the church and whatever, but I hadn't actually made a personal decision to follow Christ, and I didn't really believe it. I was having some anxiety attacks back then, actually, that I didn't tell anybody about. I kept them to myself, and they would happen when I would start to think about eternity. I would start to think about, there being no end to my consciousness, or even if I did die and I was just, into the dust and, not conscious anymore, there was no end to that. I'd never be back, and this whole concept of eternity just made my heart sink into my stomach, and I would start to freak out. And this is where I was at, and I didn't have anything to kind of fill that hole with or explain why that was okay, and it really it terrified me. And so I was riding in a car with my girl who's now my sister-in-law, and she recommended that I read this book. It was called A Case for Christ. And so I read this book just kind of out of curiosity, and there was enough historical evidence and this and whatever to just prove to me that the Gospels are accurate and Jesus was real and all this stuff actually happened. And I started to think about what that meant, and after reading that book, I devoted my life to Christ kind of right there by myself in my room in high school. What that changed at that point in time in my life was nothing really externally. It was just kind of a new joy. I stopped having anxiety attacks. I started just enjoying life more. I started going to church a little more, reading scripture. Then I went to college, and in college, it all kind of got thrown in the back burner. And I never let go of my faith throughout college. I always still had it. I just didn't do anything with it, nothing. I met once or twice. I ended up in a drunken conversation about my faith with somebody, but I had too much fun in college, and I was in a fraternity, and the first 2 years of college was just I was partying as much as I possibly could all the time, and all the while still saying prayers here and there, and kind of I still had a knowledge of my faith. Again, it just wasn't affecting anything externally in my life. And then at the end of my sophomore year, I met Kayla, who's my fiance, beautiful fiance right there. And when she came into my life, she was going through a really hard time, and I remember even before we knew each other very well, she told me kind of her story, and I felt this urge to pray for her just through this situation. And I did every day for like 9 months straight. And even when I didn't know her that well, I prayed for her every single day. And I didn't pray for the circumstances of this situation to have any specific type of outcome. What I prayed for was that through these difficulties that that I could see her come to Christ. And believe it or not, and this was the first time I'd ever done anything like this, and believe it or not, towards the end of that period of time, and we had been dating now, she came to Christ. And this was the first really glimpse I caught into what it meant to like help lead someone to this life that we talk about, and it was amazing. As we started dating, we both just started getting this inkling to want to go to church, and so we started going to Schweitzer. And these are all, nothing in my life ever happened like, it wasn't like one huge moment and like, bam, I'm a Christian, or bam, now everything's different. It's all been so gradual, but looking back, I can kind of I can see these milestones. One of them was joining Schweitzer. We looked at a few different churches and landed there, and not even so much joining, but so we were there for a few months, kind of going on and off, and then they asked if we wanted to be in a small group, and so we looked at each other and we said, we should get involved, and that's what we did. So we joined a small group, and if I can tell you, to do anything, if you ever want to experience more of your faith or go deeper with Christ, you've got to start somewhere, right? We started in a small group, and this was the first time that I think her or I ever really experienced Christ, what it means to be following Christ. And I can't tell you how it works or why it works, but it wasn't until we joined this group and started really sharing our faith that it exploded. It just launched us into this new life, and we stopped drinking, and we stopped doing all different types of things that we used to do. And it really kind of cleaned us from the inside out. It was beautiful. And then I got into another kind of men's prayer group over at Schweitzer, and then really what that led to is this. I remember sitting in these groups saying, I've got this thing inside of me. I'm talking to these guys, and I'm like, there's all this emotion inside of me, and it's exploding out of me. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. I'm sitting here, and I'm going to church, and I'm in these groups and whatever, but it's like I know I need to be doing something with this energy that's inside of me, right? And it was just this building of tension that God was putting in my heart to do something. And then one Sunday they talked about spiritual gifts at Schweitzer, and I was led to come talk to Mark here at Church at the Center. And this was truly the milestone, was having that conversation with Mark about Church at the Center, what this vision was at this church. And I was immediately intrigued, and Kayla and I kind of went through this discernment period of going back and forth between the churches, and it didn't take too long. I mean, it took about 2 months of us switching back and forth to kind of give up the old way of just showing up to church as a consumer and getting what we could out of it, and and actually becoming part of something that was moving, this moving force, which is Church at the Center. And since I've been here, it's the best decision I think I've ever made in my life. And I couldn't have done it without the support and the similar desires of my fiance. And I think I speak for her too. This has just been the most impactful situation I've ever experienced being a part of this church. And this church has called me to worship, help lead worship. I've slowly learned how to worship God through music, and it's called me into other forms of leadership and preaching, and it's given me that awesome opportunity to see if ministry is something that I'm that I'm being called to do. Really, guys, what it's done is giving me this like amazing security and just light in my life. Clark actually just mentioned, we were praying for the service just about 30 minutes ago, and he mentioned that this is like the only church he's ever been a part of that's just where you see like everybody's raw emotion. We were thinking about last Sunday, and if you guys were here, it was powerful. It was a really powerful service. I can't even explain it, but think about how much you know about the lives of the people sitting next to you. If you've been really involved in this church, it's amazing to think about like just the dirt you have on everybody here. And it's crazy, but it's awesome, and it's this extremely strong community, and the focus is outside of just creating an attractional Sunday service. In fact, it's the opposite of that. We almost don't want you to be too attracted to Sunday because we want you to be doing this outside of these walls, not on Sunday, you know, and it has been extremely difficult throughout this process to change my mindset, being raised in the church. The consumeristic type of view and treating church like it's a menu and just what can I get out of it versus like, why aren't we making new disciples? Why aren't we making new Christians, bringing people to Christ? Our church needs to be building, right? And we've talked a lot about this. And so just being able to experience this with some of you in small groups and in the larger community has absolutely changed my heart. I give way more than I ever used to give. I love more than I used to love. I enjoy life more than I used to enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, there's times where I just want to go hop back in a pew, and sit down and just do nothing and show up, conveniently whenever I want to. But then I think about this community and how that would be letting you guys down, and I'd be letting myself down and letting God down, and it drives me. It truly drives me. And this community is the first sight I've had of what it really is to be following Christ. And so thank you guys for just, helping me along that process. As of right now, that's how my life has changed. God has absolutely lit a bulb for me and lit my life up with this church. So I couldn't be happier.